Hello everyone and welcome to our presentation on child sacrifice in Uganda. I would like to take this opportunity of acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, both past and present, on which we meet here today. And also I would like to warn viewers that some of the images in this presentation may be disturbing. Thank you and enjoy.
Con los terroristas.
The Harlem Shake.
As you've just seen with these children in Uganda, they're happily enjoying life, dancing, singing and generally playing around. Unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of Ugandan children. More so, between 900 and 3,000 of them who disappear annually. A large proportion of these children are expected to be used for child sacrifice. There are a number of international frameworks that have been developed that are designed to protect children against violence and child sacrifice, for instance. The Ugandan government has agreed to be part of these international efforts by signing the Declaration of the Rights of the Child, and more importantly, the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We know children are supposed to live lives free and happy as depicted. However, in reality, in Uganda, a proportion of these don't fulfil that. Throughout our presentation, you will see that the horror slaughtering of children through child sacrifice still exists and continues to be practiced.
Our little son, Gideon Smith Lebanga Kene, was playing in the compound of the school here, and right there under that tree, the killer was sitting with the Christmas card with the electric carols in it, and he was trying to play to attract the child. He strangled the child and broke the neck and hid the body under the bed. Now he was waiting for darkness to come, and then he would take the body parts. After the child had died, he had tried to pluck the tongue of the child, but because the child had already died and the teeth were already clenched strong, he could not now manage to get the tongue.
Child sacrifice, a cult within some cultures, whereby children are offered as sacrifice in the hope of wealth, luck or prosperity, is argued to generally target the poorer communities and families by unregulated, foreign or fraudulent immigrant healers or witch doctors. As mentioned, around 3,000 children disappear from their homes in Uganda annually. Unfortunately though, the predicament of these children is never identified nor documented. However, some child protection activists suspect that these children are eventually sacrificed. Again, this information remains hidden and never actually brought to public notice or even reported to the police in most instances. So as such, the exact scale of the problem remains unknown.
It has started. We have started hearing human sacrifice.
They're finding bodies.
I've never seen something like this. This was the first time of its kind to find a dead body beheaded.
We came to Uganda to find out why this is happening. Why now? Dozens of children have been sacrificed in the past 2 years. Hundreds more are missing, unaccounted for. We've been told of a gruesome case in a small village near the border with Congo. The roads got dustier, narrower, then disappeared. After 8 hours on a remote farm, we met Asima. She is 20 years old. Her only son was sacrificed.
He was called Baguma Nicholas. Aguma Nicholas.
Detective Chris Shashava picks up the story.
They tried to search for the kid. They tried to search for the father and could not be seen.
They searched until sundown.
When we got there, I pushed my hands into the fresh soil. I found a leg.
Here's the hole.
Ah, this is the place.
I pulled my son's body out of the soil. I realized he had no head.
So as you've just seen, child sacrifice is a devastating issue, not only on the individual, should they actually survive, but it affects mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers and the wider community, with some families actually living in fear that their children may be kidnapped. Poverty has been outlined as an underlying factor of child sacrifice. The economic and social construct resulting from poverty is argued to be a major factor in child sacrifice, particularly as neighbours, some community members and even some police officers can often be manipulated by these witch doctors in selling children, believing that the child might have a better future, more luck and a better life. As mentioned, due to the effects of poverty and minimal resource availability in Uganda, education and raising community awareness is often lacking in some of these communities. Additionally, when an abduction or sacrifice does actually occur, the families are often powerless to prosecute. Usually they don't have the finances to bring a case to court, and if they do actually manage to get enough evidence to bring the case before the courts, unfortunately the level and the nature of corruption throughout Uganda often means that perpetrators are often released back into the community and can potentially repeat their crimes. Thankfully, there are some international organisations that assist with the implications of child sacrifice. For instance, the Kayampizi Childcare Ministry and the Jubilee Campaign are both organisations in Uganda that are specifically set up to raise awareness of child sacrifice and also help to bring justice to the victims of practice. They also offer counselling and support for those families that have undergone the practice. Peter Sarinkayanga leads campaigns to lobby the government and enforce stricter laws on witch doctors who ceremoniously murder children. However, although these organisations are there at the ground level, it is incredibly hard for organisations such as Peter's due to the presence of corruption and bribery within the regions and the government sectors. Uganda has the highest level of bribery across its government sectors within the regions of Africa, and with this it makes it easy for individuals to prey on the weak, to pay for handing over children, or for the police, for instance, for simply forgetting it's happened. So imagine a hospital where staff actually get paid to leave children out to be abducted, or police that hand over kids or manage to drop cases and the perpetrators get away with it. This is commonplace in Uganda, unfortunately.
One of the most publicized child sacrifice cases is that of Joseph Kasirie, a 12-year-old boy who was murdered in 2008. Kasirie's head and private parts were cut off and have to date never been recovered. In July last year, businessman Gatoka Jubi was sentenced to life imprisonment over this murder. This is one of the few cases that have actually had their time in court. The report released today shows that child sacrifice has been on a steady rise from 2009 to 2012, and the most common body parts missing are the tongue, female and male genitalia, blood, legs, and the entire head. The report shows that more girls than boys have been mutilated, and that children between the ages of 3 to 18 are sacrificed more than adults. Poverty is listed as the strongest driver for human sacrifice, with people consulting witch doctors for help. There is also the deep-rooted belief that use of body parts, blood and tissue in traditional medicine make it stronger and more powerful. But several traditional healers do not consider the use of human body parts as part of traditional medicine.
You can't protect life, save life by killing another. Removing one life to protect another, it's not proper.
While the blame has always been placed on witch doctors and their agents, the focus this time is on the communities that have adopted the belief that sacrificing a child will solve their problems.
Will community members be prepared when they realise, when they're brought face to face with the fact that their visit to a so-called witch doctor results in the mutilation of a child that may come from their own community?
Those that are against the practice have, according to the report, lost trust in the authorities because they say the officers are easily bribed and suspects set free, while others say they have to bribe the authorities for them to look into cases where their loved ones were victims. But the police say this report is not accurate.
The report is full of speculation, is not based on facts, and at best it is actually full of lies.
The report recommends that the draft action plan on child sacrifice be endorsed and implemented, and traditional healers against the practice be co-opted to fight against it. Josephine Karungi, NTV.
As you've just seen in the video, it is clear that unless the issue of bribery and corruption that is rife throughout Uganda is being addressed, the timeless efforts for which the organisations like Kayampizi are doing to try and reduce the horror of child sacrifice will be minimal, and unfortunately the trauma, the despair will continue to be felt by mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and the community.
He did suffer brain damage, which is permanent, unfortunately.
They call him the miracle child. A machete was sliced through Alan's head and neck in an attempt to behead him. He was also castrated. The work of witch doctors, attempting child sacrifice.
You see, this is where the cut was. There is a bone missing here.
The 9-year-old's mutilated body was found just a mile from his home. It was a month before he woke from a coma. Doctors are surprised Alan survived, but he will need a lifetime of emotional and physical therapy. Child sacrifice, a juju ritual, was rare here until 3 years ago, when it re-emerged, coinciding with a boom in Uganda's economy. It's widely believed that some members of the new elite are paying witch doctors vast sums of money for an ancient practice, in the belief it'll bring them greater wealth and good health. But these people do not sacrifice their own children. In the villages that surround the capital Kampala, I hear horrific stories. This is where you found the body. Tepenesi found the decapitated body of her 6-year-old grandson, Stephen. He'd been missing for 24 hours. The local witch doctor admitted to sacrificing Stephen. Tepenesi told me that the police didn't want to investigate.
They offered me money to keep quiet.
She refused the offer. Uganda has a child sacrifice police task force, but families complain of corruption and slow investigations. Alan's father, Semwanga, has sold his home to pay for Alan's medical treatment and moved to the slums near the capital. They are also waiting for justice. The men Alan claims kidnapped him for sacrifice live in this village. They were arrested and released without charge. But members of this community have told us that they continue to take children and sacrifice them. Posing as businessmen, we asked around for a witch doctor who could bring success to our local construction project. We were introduced to this man, Awali. During the first meeting, Awali sacrificed a goat to bring luck to the business. A few days later, we were invited back to his shrine to discuss what he regards as the most powerful spell, child sacrifice.
There are two ways of doing this. We can bury the child alive on your construction site, or we cut the child and put their blood in a bottle of spiritual medicine. If it's a male, the whole head is cut off, and his genitals. We will dig a hole at your construction site and bury the feet and the hands and put them all together in the hole.
Alan, do you recognise this man?
Awali.
And is he one of the men that took you, Alan? Yes?
Yeah.
It's too dangerous to confront Awali, so we informed the police of our findings. Official police figures show 38 children have been victims of sacrifice since 2006, a number based solely on conclusive investigations. Charities complain 900 reported cases remain outstanding, including Alan's.
If we get information that someone is involved in doing criminal activities, like it can be like a human sacrifice, we shall go and investigate, and if we prove the case against him, we shall take him to court. Sometimes the cases, the complaints are not proved.
These children are exchanged for money. These children are slaughtered with such brutality and human circumstances.
In the last year, there have been more victims of child sacrifice from Alan's parish than the official number for the entire country. Communities like this one are backing the charity Jubilee campaign, which is lobbying the government to regulate witch doctors and better resource the police.
The children have no voices, and their voices have been silenced by the law, by the police, which is not acting, by people who read papers and do nothing. So we have to stand, whatever it takes, to fight this evil.
Do you think they'll listen?
We pray that they will.
No one from the Ugandan government agreed to do an interview. The police deny inaction and corruption. Charities claim that without the full force of the law, there is little that can be done to protect Uganda's children from the witch doctors that kill for profit. And Awali, Alan's attacker, remains a free man. Chris Rogers, BBC News, Uganda.
A number of recommendations have been considered with the aim at reducing this horrific practice, such as building the capacity of the police force to carry out more thorough investigations. The government in Uganda could strengthen and implement legislation and also review its current and very outdated act, namely the Witchcraft Act. Governments could also commit to more adequate resourcing for the protection of children, working with the NGOs to empower communities through large-scale awareness programmes. However, it is argued that due to the nature and context of the issues and the current Ugandan landscape, that these recommendations could be considered somewhat aspirational. Therefore, from the discussions, it is argued that local level responses are much more effective, that utilise small-scale outreach programmes and build the capacity of communities, enabling them to use their own resources much more effectively and efficiently. So to sum up, we've highlighted some of the issues and consequences and ramifications from the practice of child sacrifice. Families and communities will continue to suffer from these ramifications unless more national and international efforts ramp up their agendas to tackle the problem, instead of simply continuing to hide under a banner of legislative frameworks that have little or no impact in the Ugandan context. More action is required at a practical level to continue in raising awareness, both locally and internationally, and educating those communities and families about the practice and how to avoid it. As social workers, our role is not only about advocating and protecting children's rights, it's also about providing families with the tools so that they can learn to protect their children and their land, and they can move on and grow and heal. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation.
If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land.